Good evening. I would like to call to order the May 19th, 2015 edition of the Canyon City Planning Commission. Would you all please rise and pledge allegiance to our flag?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Would you call the roll, please?
Good evening. Chairman Troutman,
Here.
Commissioner Bellantoni,
Present.
Commissioner Walsh,
Here.
Commissioner Grantham,
Present.
Commissioner Cromer,
Here.
Commissioner Embry,
Here.
Commissioner Gill, Commissioner Frida.
Okay, I'd like to call for approval of the Planning Commission meeting of April 21st, 2015. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? If not, I'll seek a motion and a second for approval.
I motion for approval.
I second.
Second. Okay, would you call the roll? Grantham seconded.
Commissioner Embry, Commissioner Grantham,
Aye.
Chairman Troutman,
Aye.
Commissioner Bellantoni,
Aye.
Commissioner Walsh,
Aye.
Commissioner Cromer.
Yes.
Okay, first on the agenda, I would like to call to order an open public hearing, and I'll state as following. The provisions of the Canyon City Municipal Code, and in particular Title 17 thereof, the subdivision and development regulations, and the comprehensive plan of the City of Canyon City, are incorporated into the record of this hearing as set forth verbatim. Could we have a proof of notice from Terry?
Yes, Chairman. Written notice was mailed to all the property owners within 300 feet at least 15 days prior to this meeting as required by law.
Okay, thank you. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and purpose? Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Denise Santilli, and the hearing is about changing the use of the property at 505 Del Rey to allow for a child care center. At this point, after talking to the fire marshal, it looks like we will be licensed for 50 children. 5 children ranging from 12 months to 2.5 years, and then the additional from 2.5 years to 12 years old. And so that's what we're requesting the use of the building for.
Okay, any commissioners have any questions for the applicant? Thank you. Call for a report of our.
Could I ask one,
Yes,
please?
yes, sir.
Just a question. You're right across the street from the old Harrison School. Do you plan to make any use of those facilities, playground, et cetera, because it's proximity?
I would guess we would take some field trips, yes, over and use, not that we won't have our own playground, but yes, we would plan some field trips, but those need to be noticed a week ahead of time to parents, and so,
Good.
yes,
Thank
we
you.
would.
Any questions?
Sorry, I have another question. So you said you would be licensed to about 50 kids. Is that area that you have currently that I see fenced going to be adequate for that many kids outside, or how do you plan on regulating that?
Well, at this point, I believe that the planning and zoning team had recommended that we put a privacy fence around certain areas of the playground. What the child care division says is that there needs to be a 4-foot fence, and that's their regulations. So, but to accommodate some of the neighbors' concerns, that was recommended, so we would follow that recommendation. And we would enlarge part of the playground, yes, on the west side would be enlarged.
That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions from the commissioners? I'd ask for a report from our associate planner.
Certainly. I'm going to kind of fill in where, based on what your questions were and everything. 505 Del Rey is currently a vacant church with an unpaved parking lot on the south. The lot's about a half an acre and is located on the northwest corner of Cherry and Del Rey. Surrounding land uses are residential, and on the south, across the street, is Harrison Park. The surrounding zoning is R2, medium density residential, and again on the south side is open space and parks, again the park. There is existing water service and sanitary sewer. The applicant is requesting to operate a state licensed childcare facility 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. She is currently licensed for 50 children. She has as you can tell from the staff report, she also has a facility at 219 Orchard. And she is licensed for 50 children, but has indicated that she accommodates 30 to 35 kids at a time. She has 2 access to the property, one on Cherry and one on Del Rey, that allows for a pickup and drop-off area in the parking lot. The parking lot is going to provide 15 parking spaces, and her parking requirement is 10 spaces, so she's meeting her requirement there. The only comments that we would have to do with our meeting with a neighbor who had some issues with proximity to their house. The increased activity, and we're assuming that this is an increased activity based on what the former church had. I'm assuming, as the staff person, that there was activity there 1 or 2 times a week in past years. I think that the church has been vacant actually for several years. So now we're talking about 5 days a week and perhaps 3 hours of outdoor play activity. And this is in proximity to residences, one of which is about 20 feet away from the property line. Having talked with the neighbors and also doing a site visit, it seemed as if it would be appropriate to require a 6-foot privacy fence to mitigate some of the playground noise, and also provide additional safety for kids from street traffic along the east property line. I think that some of the neighbors are here, and they certainly do know the neighborhood better than we do, and had some concerns also, which they will, I'm sure, will speak to about foot traffic on Del Rey. And so we have suggested that the north property line and the east property line, where the toddler playground is, be fenced with a 6-foot privacy fence. The applicant is anticipating doing renovations to the structure, and that any construction also would be required to comply with building, fire district, sand district, electrical, and plumbing codes. The applicant, we have decided through this process, because she's gone through, answered all of the questions and addressed all of the issues that we need to have addressed, is going to be exempt from any requirements of the site plan review. All of the referral comments are in your packet. We've kind of listed some of those in the staff report to give you an idea of what the concerns were. Ms. Santilli is working on most, if not all, of these at the present time. The recommended conditions of approval are as follows. The applicant has to obtain all required building, electrical, and plumbing permits and comply with all the requirements of the Sand District and the Canyon City Area Fire District. The applicant is to install a 6-foot privacy fence so that the entire north property line is fenced, and will also install a 6-foot privacy fence in the proximity of the east property line where the toddler playground is proposed. I also wanted to indicate, I'm sure it's on your site plan if you hadn't noticed, Justin, when you were talking about the playgrounds, there are actually 2 playgrounds. There's one for the big kids and one for the toddlers. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant is going to execute a future improvements agreement with the city and pay a one-time stormwater impact fee of $375. The applicant will obtain a state license for the operation of a child care facility. And there are two standard conditions, numbers 5 and 6, that are with regards to all material representations made by the applicant are binding upon that applicant. And then also has to do with the tenancy, number 6, that extends only to Giving Tree Childcare or a similar organization that's operated in the same manner. As I stated earlier, a written response, written notice was mailed out to 20 property owners, and we were contacted by the neighbors to the north. Your advisory report is in your packet, and if you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer anything about that or the application if I can. And there are folks here who are neighbors.
Any questions of our staff?
I just have one question. There was a map provided of the aerial view for the church. Are those lines correct? Is that really a 60-foot wide area road and their property overlaps onto that? Or has that been vacated by the city, or what's going on?
Well, the white line, let me get that picture so I can look at it with you. The white lines, the thin white lines, are the property boundaries. Now, these property boundaries are based on the GIS system from the county. They are not based on any kind of a land survey. So it would appear, and ask me your question again.
My
Sorry.
question would be, are they encroaching on the city right away, or are we giving that to them, or what's going to be?
It could be that they are encroaching into the right-of-way, and that's why I indicated in one of the conditions that they may have to get a license agreement with the city in order to maintain that fencing outside their property line, if it indeed is outside their property line. We don't know that at this point, but I just wanted to make that clear. It could be. Many times this does happen because it's very difficult to know. A lot of people don't have surveys of their property, and these uses were established many, many years ago and kind of creep towards the roadway.
Any questions?
I noticed that you said you'd been contacted by the neighbors to the north, Mr. and Mrs. Purcell. Is it a written comment?
This was a conversation that we had, and actually I should say we kind of ran into each other at the site visit. So they came in and talked to me, and I invited them to come and take a look at the application as well in the office, and so they came and we had a conversation at the
Was this
planning and
a
zoning office.
supportive contact or a concerned contact?
They had some concerns.
And what were those concerns?
Proximity to the use.
It is mitigated by the 6-foot privacy fence?
Is that what this
Could be.
picture here? Sorry,
Yes,
looking west
the-
along northern property line?
Exactly.
Okay.
So is
It could be. That was staff's suggestion, and they were amenable to that. You might want to talk to them
Are they here
at
this evening?
this hearing. They are here.
Oh, good. Okay.
So they can answer those questions too if they feel that that's adequate mitigation.
And the church's property extends all the way to the concrete on that northern side
Yeah,
there?
that's basically where the property line
Alright.
is.
Can I make one comment? As far as that, the fencing that you're seeing in this picture, that would be the toddler room, and that's where there would be 5 children allowed in this playground area. So the majority of the children would not be in this area. This comes off what we would use as the toddler room. So, and we would be licensed for 5 children there. So that would be 5 children, most of the time using that area. So that would be a minimal amount of children that would be using this area.
Any other questions? Ma'am?
I have just another question on the second page, item 5 of our city engineer's memorandum of April 29th. This was a church, correct? And it's been vacant for a while?
That's my understanding, yes.
And I'm just kind of curious. Under number 5, there is no proposed change for the existing accesses. But the statement that is made, it's my recommendation that the requirement for a traffic study and traffic impact fee be waived since no new development on this site is proposed that will increase the overall amount of vehicle trips in the area. I just find that interesting because a church has between 60 and 100 usually attendees once a week, as opposed to being licensed for 50 children as a pickup and drop off, plus employees 5 days a week. I would think that if we did the math there would be a overall increase in vehicle trips. Did I misunderstand that?
I don't know. I can't speak to that specifically, and the engineer is not here. Okay. Do you happen to know how many vehicle trips your use generates?
I've never sat and counted how many.
Well, this is very simple. How many employees?
We have usually 4 or 5, depending on the amount of children that we have, including myself and my business partner. So
Okay, so
there's
5.
5 of us.
Okay,
4 or
so 5. So that's, now I'm just not going to count trips as one ingress and one egress. That gets confusing. So that's 5 in and outs. Plus, if you can max out your 50 per day, children per day, that's 55.
It's usually about 30, 35
Okay,
kids
so let's
that
go to
we have.
35. 35 plus 5 is 40, I think, right? So 40 times 5 would be 200 trips per week, as opposed to, that's, a church,
Close.
yeah, a church is 1 day a week.
Well, it may not actually be
Well-
1 day a week. I mean,
Okay, I'll give you twice during Lent and during Christmas Eve in those. I'll give you that. But it's still, it is, I mean, I was just curious. It was an interesting comment. Overall amount of trips in the area will not increase. It just seemed like it would. I mean, if he wants to grant a waiver on a basis, I understand that. But to say that there is no overall increase when just doing the math, it's, anyway, but the engineer's not here to discuss that, so.
sorry, I can't help you with that.
Any questions? Thank you, Ms. Santilli. Okay, is there anyone else in the audience wishing to address the commission on this item? Yes, please come to the mic and state your name and address for us.
How you doing? My name is Dean Pershel. I live at 511 Delray, right north of the property. The property that's in question it's been a vacant property for probably 5 years, up until about 6 months ago. It's currently being rented as a school. Of course, the city or nobody knows that. So, they may know that, but the property has been in disarray for a long time. So I think the neighbors would be delighted that somebody would actually take care of it, you know, and, but we do have concerns. I got a copy of the alleged hours of operation, and what is proposed is Monday and Tuesday from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., not 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So I have questions there. It's vague, you know, on hours of operation. It just states 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. It does not state Monday through Friday, so I have concerns there. If this is gonna go to a 7-day-a-week operation. I don't wanna come off as being against childcare operation. You know, I think it would be nice to have the property vacated and somebody taking care of it, but on the one side of the east side where the proposed toddler playground is, I mean, 5 kids doesn't seem like a lot, so I don't think the noise level would be that high, but on the other side is a much smaller area for a playground. It's not near as big, so if the kids are gonna be playing over there, it's not as big as area, so I don't know how that would play out. I do agree with you. I mean, how could it not impact traffic in that area? Because the Harrison School Park is straight across from this property to the south. At 5 p.m. on Monday, Tuesday, I believe, Wednesday, that park is swollen with soccer practice, baseball practice, all kinds of things. So, and that's a very narrow street, and it's hard to navigate right now with the traffic because you have people parked on Delray, you have people parked on Cherry in all directions. So, and if you look at it, going across Cherry, there's stop signs on Gray Dean. There's not a stop sign on Delray and Cherry. There's stop sign on Orchard and stop signs all the way to, but not on Delray. So I think that traffic going through, you know, it has some concerns for me. I work nights. I don't usually get home until 5 a.m., you know, a lot of nights. So, you know, I'm just going to bed when, the only thing that further I want to say about it, as far as a real estate owner, I lose my right to quiet enjoyment in the neighborhood. It was a church. On Sundays when the church was operating, there was probably maybe, I would say at best, maybe 30 to 50 people there at best on a Sunday. And they did run a small daycare through there once in a while, but it was very often. So that's pretty much all I've got to say. But
Any questions? Thank you. Okay.
Yes, please. I'm curious about the apparent conflict between a statement of operating hours from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. or whatever you said that's different from what we have in our information.
I got a copy of it that was mailed to me. What's that? What about the other one that was mailed to us? Monday, Tuesday, 6 to 9. Right. So that's I don't know, I can give it to you here.
Terry, do you have a comment on that?
That is not what I understood from the application. It was 6 to 6.
That's not what we have in our
I believe
packet.
that's in our application.
That's what we have in our packets, and that's what will govern, not some other document.
That was mailed to me from.
You are correct. He has stated correctly. And I don't know, maybe I missed that in going through this level of detail. This is page 2, Angela, if you're looking for it.
It's in there.
So there's something that's amiss there.
Well, we can have the applicant answer that question.
Please.
Good.
When we originally opened the facility at 219 North Orchard, we did have extended hours, and but we have since ceased that. We are open from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., and I can tell you I'm tired and don't want to work any more than that at this point, okay? Monday through Friday, 6 to 6 is plenty long for us. I really don't have any desire to work any more hours than what I'm working. You know, that's a long day, 12 hours is a long day. Runs into 13 hours for me to get there early, to get there to open up and, you know, to close. So I can tell you, I don't want to work any more hours than what I'm working. So I don't have any plans. We are currently open from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And we're counting minutes if parents are late. So we're not happy to be open any later than 6 o'clock.
Okay, so you understand then that yours is a regulated business. And if we should happen to approve this, we're going to approve 6 to 6.
That's absolutely
And that's going to be
fine
your
with-
guideline. That's okay with you? You
That's
agree to that?
absolutely fine with, and
Thank you.
you can, that's what we operate now.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the, yes, ma'am. Please come up and state your name and address.
Jennifer Keegan. I live to the east at 2405 Cherry Street.
Okay.
One of the things I had a concern with was the 9 to 9, because we do get up at 4:30 every morning and work, so as long as that's.
Would you speak in the mic?
Hours
Speaking
will
in the microphone.
Oh, I'm
please.
sorry.
That's
The
okay.
hours will stay residential, 6 to 6, that's good. I guess I have a question about the fencing on the east. If it's their property, that's fine. I guess I don't see the need for it. It's a public road, and it's never been an issue. If there's gonna be kids over there, I think the more eyes on them, seeing that they're safe is a good thing. So it surprised me that they were gonna fence to the east. I don't care either way. The hours of operation were one thing, I got 6, hold on. Angela, the traffic control study is a huge issue with me, huge issue. Sitting on my front porch on any given day, it's an accident waiting to happen. There is a little kid out there that is gonna get hurt. I've spoken with Adam Lancaster in the past. Interests me that he's not here tonight on a decision that concerns him. When Parks and Rec put that playground in there, I got with Jim Hoare, and I called and I spoke with Adam Lancaster directly about the safety concerns on that corner. It's a huge issue. He indicated to me that because the school isn't there and there's no foot traffic, it wasn't about car traffic at all. It was about foot traffic at that point. That technically, per the state, the stop sign at Diamond and Cottonwood are no longer needed because there's no elementary school there anymore. So they're not required by law to have the stop signs there, but the city's not going to invest the money to take them out. I understand that. But once again, when you stop at Diamond and stop at Cottonwood, and then you've got 2 blocks to gun it and go, where you've got 100 little kids out there for soccer practice on any given day, and now you're going to add daycare kids in there crossing the street. The kids from the other daycare, I don't know what it is, that's down there on Cottonwood, they come across that playground on a regular basis through Cottonwood at a stop sign. My concern with this is if you're going to add extra kids and extra people, the city needs to put a stop sign at that intersection. It is an accident waiting to happen. I sit at my kitchen table and I watch people blow through the stop sign going south on Delray, and I see people stop on a daily basis. Amazing. They stop at Delray and they don't know what to do because there's no stop sign there. And then you get the regulars that come down 40 miles an hour behind them. These guys are stopped, there's no stop sign. You've got people locking up brakes and little kids and everything else out there. My concern would be that there is a stop sign at that intersection, and I would hope that everybody sitting up there would see that at this point. It may not be the increased traffic from the daycare facility, but it is from Parks and Rec, and it got blown off. Yes.
I'm going to pose another question here to staff. In our packets, we get pictures. Here's a picture looking along the eastern fence line, looking south on Delray, and there's a big stop sign there.
The stop sign needs to be on Cherry.
Okay, I don't disagree with you. I think that needs to be a 4-way stop. And that probably is a condition that we may add to this approval, that the city put a,
I believe that used to be a 4-way stop. And showing how young I am, I did go to that Harrison school years before it closed. I could have swore there were 4-way stop on Del Rey.
There might have been. I've been there
But,
about 7 years, and there's never been one. And like I said, when they turned it into the soccer fields in the park and the need came up, I contacted Adam, I contacted Jim Hoare, and I understand money, but a little kid's life isn't worth it.
On Cherry,
On Cherry.
okay?
The other concern I have, since you have the pictures there, I took some on my phone, is the incredibly obnoxious fix that the prior owners or the current owners did to the water drain system there, where they have that piece of black piping coming up, sticking out of the ground just by the stop sign there. It's a collection for trash, it's a collection for teenage obnoxiousness. It's a danger for any little kids that are over there. Some kid's ball goes in there, they go head over heels into that 4-foot black whatever it is. Do you see that? If you're looking south on the east side, there should be, you'll see a 3-foot black, I'm sorry, on the west side, east side. East side. There's like a 3-foot black PVC pipe sticking up.
I don't believe we have that.
Okay, well, I have it on my phone if you need to see it. But anyway, we've had a huge drainage issue, along with the ditch company. Mr. Pershaw and Grover can attest to that. The area floods. The current owners came in and did some mitigation because that lateral ditch, even though they're not members of the ditch company, is their responsibility. So they came in and literally put in that, I don't know what they did, but there's a 3-foot section of about 1 foot black PVC culvert piping that's sticking up that is a huge danger if we're going to have little kids out there. And those would be my 2 primary concerns, would be that the city puts a stop sign in because it's dangerous, and that whatever that piping is there is corrected, and I guess that would be on the new property owners, and they'll need to consider that. Are you guys looking at buying it or just putting a building in there, or just a business? Buying it and putting the business in, okay. And then there was one thing that you made I'm sorry, I don't know your name, was Mr. Walsh, or I believe it was in the notes, you said a similar business. It would be a daycare, or if the daycare ceased to exist, it would be ruled for similar business. And I guess I'm just wondering what similar business might be. Similar use.
Something along the lines of a daycare center. It would have to operate under the same conditions. It's a standard.
Okay, so there is no other, I mean,
No.
if they decided to, I don't know, open a restaurant
Now,
or do
this
something
is-
different, that wouldn't qualify? Because that was the
That's
one thing that
correct.
jumped out at me, was
Right.
similar business.
That's correct. Now, if the planning commission wanted to change that, any of these conditions, they could feel free to do that. And limit it to only a child care center that operates under the same, or it could be also that it only is for Giving Tree and no other. So if Giving Tree ever left, then no other organization could come in for, and use it as a special review, even if it was a child care center. So we would be looking for something along the lines of a child care center.
Okay, I was just wondering what similar. I guess thinking one more thing, and it's just an issue. I don't have little kids that are in sports at this particular point anymore, hopefully. In the past, the Parks and Rec and everybody that's practiced over there has always utilized that parking lot for Parks and Rec, parental things. When the church was there, they started putting up signs saying nobody else could park there, this and that. And I guess I was just wondering what your thoughts, if the parents are showing up for sporting events. Parks and Rec did a great job aligning the parking on Cherry and on Del Rey anyway. So it's angled, so you have a little bit more parking. But there's a lot of parents out there, and some of them have been chewed out in the past and got into confrontations with the current owners about not parking on their property. And I guess I just was wondering maybe what the thought is, if your hours are done at 6 and there's practice out there, are you going to be open to, letting some of that off the park and into your lot? And that's just, it's not even my concern. I mean, I know it was an issue, so I just wanted to bring that up. Guess that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir. Could you state your name and address, please?
Ma'am, or sorry?
State your name and address, please. Into the mic, please, in the microphone.
Which one?
It's your pick.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. I have a written statement, and I won't bore you by reading it. I want it to be inserted in some way as officially into the record.
Okay, I need to have your name and address, please. Your name and address.
Okay.
Where you live. Your
My name is Grover Halder.
Okay.
We're neighbors with the church property. We have two properties. One is the one that we reside in at 2323 Cherry.
Okay.
I and my wife, Angeles. And the other one is, I have owned that property for 22 years. And I've seen churches come and go from that property. And as Dean Purcell, the other neighbor, mentioned, in the last 5 years or so, the church property has been abandoned and has been truly a blight on the neighborhood.
Okay.
So I am generally in favor of a daycare center at that place. So we'll have a dedicated owner maintaining the property and upgrading the building and the property itself. The other property that we own is one that is exactly on Cherry, and it's contiguous as well with the church property. It's a place where we have a vineyard and an orchard, and my remarks will address some concerns that I have about things that would be very useful to us if they could be done as part of this agreement. I'd like to leave a copy of this with you so it can become part of the permanent record, and I'll try to summarize it verbally without reading and wasting your time or boring you to death. So who do I present it to?
Go ahead. To the planner.
Represents the property for these people, or what? No, I do not. Okay. Are you the representative for their acquisition of this property?
I'm not.
Oh,
I'm the city planner.
oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let me begin, first of all, the main point I'd like to make concerns the protection of our vineyard to the west of the church property against the use of chemicals that can be sprayed and carried on the wind. And the effect that I've had in the last couple years has been the destruction of some of the grapevines on our property from the people using Roundup on the church property to deal with the infestation of weeds. So I would like to describe to you what happens to a grapevine when you spray Roundup into the air and it drifts someplace else. You'd be surprised at the effect on a grapevine. It's as though someone directly sprayed Roundup on that grapevine. The leaves shrivel up, the fruit doesn't bear that year, and the wood that is really the vine itself dies back into the ground. It regenerates itself by from roots, from shoots coming up from the roots, but it takes another 3 years to replace the growth that took 3 years to bring the grapevine to a productive state. So a vine that is killed by a chemical spray, even though it was not intended, but has in fact happened, it'll take 6 years to regenerate that vine. And in our property, the first row right along our driveway that fronts onto the church property, last summer or last year sometime, the people maintaining trying to clean up the property used some kind of spray, and I now have 5 vines that have died back to the ground, and and I figure that the cost of replacing the wood that it took to build those to productive stage takes 3 years. There's another 3 years for the shoots to come up, so that's 6 years lost
Okay,
on these vines.
I understand that. Could we just get to briefly to, that was a previous owner or the current owner that did that. So I guess can we get to the point?
Okay.
Okay.
What I would like to request from the new owners, when they do take control, is that they refrain from chemical sprays of any kind because of the danger to us in the vineyard, and that they rehabilitate the parking lot by perhaps grading it, using a front end loader to back drag it, or use a box level on a tractor to eliminate weeds and refrain from chemical if they can. Second point is there's East Canyon, as you know, has a system of ditches. These ditches flow down along Cottonwood and Diamond and so on. And in the past, this was meant to irrigate fields, orchards, gardens, and so on. Now it's mostly houses, but there's still people like us who do use ditch water to irrigate with. When you do that, there's a wastewater runoff. And along Cherry Street, from all the way along except about at the church property itself, there's a wastewater ditch that is meant and is a legal easement to take water that comes off of fields and return it back into the ditch system. When the church built their built the church there, they laid about a 4 or 5 inch clay pipe in that wastewater ditch and covered it over and made it into a parking.
Please, could we just
So my
get
point
to our
is this.
point? Okay.
My point is this. I would like to see a permanent solution to the wastewater, ditch water that comes off of our property and flows over to Delray and enters back into the ditch system. Over on the east side of the church property, about 2 or 3 years ago, they put in a 14-inch PVC pipe. And that pipe, part of that pipe is that little thing that you saw sticking up, Jennifer, to hold a hole open at the corner of Cherry and Delray to accept any other kind of system of handling wastewater. I'd like to propose that same system of a 14-inch pipe that goes along the east side of the church property be used on the south side, so that can remain a parking area as it is right now, and is useful to parents who bring their kids into the Harrison Park.
Okay. That might be a relationship with the ditch company.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the reason that
Well,
Okay.
just go to the points. Let's get to the points here.
now the third point is this: what assurance do we have that when this property, when the people who start a child care center there, for some reason either want to sell the business, go out of business, they don't make it, they have a buyer who wants to come in and buy it, but they don't want to use it for this purpose. What will be the future classification of this
That
property?
is covered. It's the only thing they can use it for at this time. They would have to come in for another permit to change use. That's all it can be used for. And
Let
we
me
could,
remind this body that in 1994, at the corner of Cherry and Orchard, this same body approved a development on that corner that put in 2 apartment buildings, 2 duplexes, and 2 houses. And the developer tried to put a house in over an easement for an irrigation ditch. And it was stopped with legal action.
yeah, well, this is a permit for a specific use. That was a little different real estate transfer type action. So,
What I would like to
so
do is
it
express
can't be, go ahead.
express concern for the future.
Mhm.
Hopefully, we'll not have it, open it up to apartment buildings or cheek-to-jowl condominiums. It really changed the nature of the neighborhood.
And you or the neighbors would have an opportunity to come back and discuss that. At this time,
And I
it's a,
hope that
it's an approval, well,
the commission or the committee, the planning committee, has another mindset than the one that approved what happened on Cherry and Orchard in 1994.
good. Thank you.
I can clarify that on that last point, and I'd like to do that. The underlying zone district here is R2. It allows for single-family and duplexes only in terms of residential. Right now, should this particular application be approved, what would happen there is a child care center and nothing else. Should that go away, any use that's allowed by right in the R2 district could occur. And someone could come in and ask for a conditional use permit or a special review to allow for something that is allowed under those 2 types of permitted uses. And/or someone could come in and take that property if they so wished and ask for a zoning reclassification. Those are all potential future actions. At this particular point, with the underlying zoning being R2, no multifamily could occur there as a use by right. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Did you have one more comment, man? Could you come to the microphone, please?
Back up on Grover's ditch issue here. I'd like to know when the picture looking eastbound on the east-hand side that you guys have
Could you,
been
we need to have
presented
you
with.
talk in the microphone, please.
I'm sorry, this apparently is in the packet that you are all looking at. It's a picture from the east side. I'd like to know when that picture was taken.
That picture was taken within the last week and a half.
I tend to disagree. I have a picture that was taken yesterday with a time, date, and stamp on my phone that shows the drainage ditch that I was talking about that you folks can't see because this picture is at least 3 years old. So to present it as being, would you like to see my picture? The ditch is an issue. Okay, I've been dealing with this ditch flooding into the church's parking lot since I bought the property. Grover has a very valid point. The ditch company has a very valid point. I just want the Santillis to know that coming into this, that ditch repair is their property. It's part, whether they have ditch shares or not. It's the Canyon City hydraulic ditch. We've been round and round with the city. It's not the city's property. It's not their responsibility. It's the property owner's responsibility. So just so you guys know, there's a long-standing property with the ditch. If anybody wants to see the picture that was taken yesterday and not the one that was taken at least 3 years ago, probably when they were trying to sell it before, I'm not sure, I'd be happy to show it to you. But I think that the ditch and the ditch repair and the flooding of the parking lot, and you guys are gonna have major issues with the flooding of the parking lot when you got little kids out there in the winter and ice and everything else. So I just think it's fair that you guys are aware of the situation you're getting into as well. But if anybody wants to see what the property actually looks like now, and the 3-foot black tubing that is 1 foot from the property, the stop sign, that does not show up in your packet, you're welcome to take a look at it.
Would the applicant like to come up and rebut or discuss anything? Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to address the commission?
I just have a question real quick. About the stop sign, would that be something that city council would have to, can we make a recommendation to city council about putting in the stop sign, or how would we go about that?
You definitely can make a recommendation.
I don't want it to be a condition that the property owner would have to meet, because obviously that's out of their hands. That's something the city would have to take care of.
It might be something that we, because the engineer is here, I'm relatively ill-equipped to deal with this particular issue. But I might suggest that we back up a bit and have as a condition something that the city engineer can provide more detailed information as we go forward with this and address your concerns. I don't know if you would be comfortable having a condition to that effect, perhaps, and going forward to city council and letting them take it from there, or whether you would want to see that back here again.
Can move it along still.
Probably craft something that, leave it to the engineer to, especially dealing with the traffic and whether, to determine whether a stop sign is warranted at that,
Yes.
at that intersection, if that makes sense to you at this point.
Yes, I can tell you, as one who has a granddaughter in soccer practice at the Harrison School Tuesday and Thursday, that is a very confusing intersection at any time. And certainly, it would seem on a common sense basis to merit a reevaluation by the city, and I would certainly personally feel better were there at a four-way stop at that intersection rather than a two-way stop. In no way can it be a condition of approval for the school, because that's beyond the school's control, it's beyond anybody's control. But I think it really merits examination, and if we make a recommendation for approval, that should be a rider that certainly be examined by the city. Is that fair, Doug? Thank you.
Any more questions? I'd like to close the public hearing and call for a motion in the finding of facts.
Which I'm looking for.
Who would like to tackle that? Yes, it would be right below your notice.
I'll go ahead and make the motion.
Okay.
The Canyon City Planning Commission, following consideration of the above captioned special review use request and after considering the testimony presented by the applicant, city staff, and any other interested parties, finds as follows. Notice of the public meeting was properly given as required by law. The application does comply with all requirements of Chapter 17.24 of the Canyon City Municipal Code and any applicable written rules. In the following respects, the applicant has provided a complete and accurate application, including all required supplemental documentation, and paid the application fee. The application is consistent with the purposes of zoning ordinance as declared in Section 17.04.020 of the Canyon City Municipal Code in the following respects. The application and referral comments have addressed the location, nature of the business, character of the surrounding property, parking, and traffic to assure that the proposed use will be compatible with the surrounding land uses and with the goal of promoting coordinated and sound development in the neighborhood. The special review use is designed to be compatible with surrounding land uses and the area of its location in the following respects. As conditioned, objectionable noise will be mitigated to an acceptable extent. Odors and other environmental influences are not present, nor is the availability of parking for the surrounding area negatively impacted.
That where you would add the part, this Would we add this
Additionally,
street
the
sign?
Planning Commission.
Would you add that?
What?
Would you add a recommendation? Additionally, the planning commission finds as follows, they would make a recommendation for placement of a stop sign?
Additionally, the planning commission finds as follows, that we would make a recommendation to the city engineer to further study the traffic and stop sign situation at, is that Delray and Cherry?
Would that be made to the city engineer or the city council? Or both?
I'm sorry?
City council or the city engineer, or both? Okay, it would be studied for stop sign installation prior to the city council action. Is that acceptable?
Yes, I have that. Thank you.
Second?
Oh, wait, hang on a second. I did this actually in one motion. So if you turn the page, you can continue with the motion and do this in one.
Read the book.
Based upon these findings of fact, the Canyon City Planning Commission hereby makes the following recommendation to the city council. Approval of the special review use request with the following modifications and/or conditions. The applicant must obtain all required building, electrical, and plumbing permits for any construction or alterations that may be necessary and obtain a certificate of occupancy if required. The applicant shall comply with any requirements of the Fremont Sanitation District and the Canyon City Area Fire District. The applicant shall install 6-foot privacy fencing so that the entire north property line is fenced. The applicant shall also install a 6-foot privacy fence in the proximity of the east property line where the toddler playground is proposed. A license agreement with the city may be required for the replacement of a fence if said fence is outside the property line. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall execute a future improvements agreement with the city for the provision of future public improvements and provide a one-time stormwater impact fee of $375. The applicant must obtain a state license for the operation of a child care facility at the proposed location, a copy of which shall be provided to the City Planning and Zoning Office for its records. Unless otherwise modified by this approval or other subsequent decision of the City Council as it may apply to this request, all material representations made by the applicant in its application submittal and/or in any public hearing shall be binding upon the applicant. The applicant's failure to perform in accordance with such material representations could result in the revocation of this approval. The approval herein granted shall extend only to the tenancy of Giving Tree Child Care Center or similar organization, so long as any subsequent tenant operates the facility in general conformance with this approval, and will terminate if the use is abandoned for a period of time in excess of 1 year.
That's the one we
Would
added.
you, would you give him number 7, please?
Additionally, the approval, governed by the 6 items above, but we respectfully request that the city engineer and the city council study making the corner of Delray and Cherry a 4-way stop.
I have that.
Good job.
That's a book there, Eric.
Nice job.
Second?
I'll second that.
Too late.
Is there any discussion on the motion?
Yes. Sorry, under number 2, one of the citizens out there said that she would not be opposed to not having a 6-foot privacy fence on the east side. Is there a chance we could strike that
Optional for the.
and leave it optional for the
I would like that.
green tree?
Do we have to amend the
No, I think that's a friendly, you don't have to read the whole thing again.
May I just clarify that then for the record, that in condition number 2, we will strike the second sentence. The applicant shall install a 6-foot privacy fencing so that the entire north property line is fenced. A license agreement with the city may be required for the replacement of a fence.
Yes.
Does that preclude them from putting it in if they want to put it?
No?
Okay.
Just removes the requirement.
Okay, yeah, so, yeah. We wouldn't have to even say if it's optional.
Well, if we do that, then if they wanted to put it up, it would be non-conforming. So can't we make it
No, it
optional?
wouldn't
No,
be
it'd be
non-conforming.
They would possibly have to have a license from the city.
They would need to have a fence permit, and they can do a 6-foot privacy fence on the side, in their side yard.
Side. Okay, all
They
right.
can.
Now, are there any other questions, discussion? Been made and seconded?
Sorry, I have another question. Sorry. The agreement with the city for the provision of future public improvements and provide a one-time stormwater impact fee of $375. Does that include would that be a study on the flooding that they have there?
No, that's actually, the stormwater impact fee is paid when a property, it hasn't been shown that they have paid that into the stormwater impact fund, because all properties participate.
So does that mean they can request the city do a impact, a future, or impact on the stormwater that happens there? They can't just request that if
No.
they pay into it?
No, the stormwater impact, if someone does an impact study, that is a developer who will do that. If someone comes along subsequently and has to, because they're going to be paving or they're going to tear down that building and they're going to build something else, they would do a stormwater impact study.
Thank you.
Okay. The public hearing is closed, so, sorry. Okay. Are there any more questions? Thank you. Would you please call roll?
Sure. Commissioner Embry,
Aye.
Commissioner Cromer,
Yes.
Chairman Troutman,
Aye.
Commissioner Bellantoni,
Aye.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes,
Commissioner Grantham.
Aye.
That's it?
Congratulations.
Okay. We are going to open up another public hearing.
thanks to all of you for coming. This is a good discussion, very spirited, and to the owners and the future operators of the school, thank you for a wonderful service.
And if you'd like to stay for the next one, you're more than happy.
Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and open up a public hearing for, that is requested by the city. And this is a hearing for a zone change amendment for Title 17 of the zoning regulations pertaining to off-premises signs. And since staff is the staff, we'd like to have the city planner tell us about proof of notice and give us a report.
I will. Thank you, Chairman. Public notice was published at least 15 days prior to the public hearing as required by law. This is a public hearing for a zoning code amendment to Chapter 17.30.050H of the zoning regulations that pertain to off-premise signs. Currently, off-premise signage is allowed by a permit so long as no sign is larger than 32 square feet. An off-premise sign is defined as any sign which is not directly related to the business operation or other commercial activity being conducted on the site upon which the sign is located. This amendment proposes to eliminate any new off-premise signage in the city as a whole, not just in our highway corridors, although that tends to be what we talk about mostly. Also, this provision does not address billboards as they are currently in our sign code not allowed. Nor would it affect any other off-premise signage that includes like political campaign signs, temporary signage for special events, or official signs. Most recently, the City Council reviewed this proposed revision at their Public Works Committee meeting on April 22nd and suggested that it be proposed as a code amendment. Backing up, in August of 2014, the city administrator conducted a site visit through the Highway 50 and Highway 115 corridors with members of the council to look at all signage in anticipation of amendments to the sign code. Out of that exercise, certain concerns came to light, one of which was off-premise signs. Although no comprehensive revisions to the sign code have been proposed yet, the city's consultant, IntelliKey, with whom staff has worked closely, is in the final stages of preparing the Highway 50 corridor plan. Staff anticipates that one recommendation of the plan will be the elimination of off-premise signage throughout these corridors. And staff agrees that signage of this type should be eliminated for a variety of reasons that we have listed here. One of which, the current sign code was adopted almost 25 years ago and has not undergone any major revisions at all. Off-premise signage may have been more appropriate when these corridors were less populated. Off-premise signage is not specifically necessary to advertise businesses and services. We've also noted that in addition, the advent of mobile devices that provide the location of goods and services at one's fingertips is adding a dimension to advertising that was not evident even 5 years ago. When off-premise signage is desired or considered necessary in either of these corridors, it can be achieved through what is called TOD signage, tourist-oriented directional signage. That's permitted through the Colorado Department of Transportation. I'm sure you've seen all of these types of signs in their rights of way. They're the blue and white directional signs. And signage along highways increases visual clutter. Because they increase visual clutter, off-premise signage is no longer consistent with the goal of the city to create a visually pleasant travel experience through these corridors, which is one of the goals of the Highway 50 corridor plan. Finally, if and when this code change becomes effective, all current legally established off-premise signs will become non-conforming. The council has expressed its desire to eliminate these signs over time in a reasonable and equitable way. However, because there are matters that pertain to state regulations and the Federal Outdoor Advertising Control Program, we are not presenting any kinds of provisions for eliminating legally non-conforming off-premise signs at this time. Those may come up with suggested revisions in the future. So we're suggesting right now to eliminate anything new that might go up. Notice of this was published May 4th, and there have been no responses to the notice. And I'll try to answer any questions that you have. I'd also point out that the revision to the code is attached to your staff report. It's item H. And I will say also that, although this was not mentioned in the staff report, that we have accepted out A-frame or sandwich board signs on Main Street at this time. So they would still be allowed as long as they're right in front of the business that they pertain to.
Could you give an example of an off-site premises sign?
Dairy Queen.
Sorry?
Dairy Queen has a sign up in the air that's not on their property, and it says half a block this way, Dairy Queen.
Poland Orchards.
Vegas.
The owl.
Well, actually, that might be on premise. I don't know.
The Highway 50
On the
corridor.
highway.
It's true, but that might be the same property as the owl. I don't
is
know.
it- so it-
Maybe not. Okay, you're right.
Yeah, they
That
own
could
that.
very well
Next to my parking lot, they own that.
Okay.
I just don't see a problem with this. I
As long as
What does that
the
mean?
I don't have a problem with off-site, if that's what they mean, they're trying to encourage people to go downtown. I put a sign up on mine for the farmer's market. Free.
She said A-frames.
It wasn't an A-frame, it was attached permanent to my sign.
Well, can we, okay, so you're,
You don't want this.
Well, let me back up. If you read this, it hasn't been changed in 25 years. I think there's lots of signs. We have a modern age coming up. We talk about mobile things on your cell phone and whatever. And this doesn't, it seems to me like there are flashing and intermediate signs and lighted signs and things like that with the digital age that we currently have. I think we ought to review totally all the signs. I just think we're starting to piecemeal again. And then we also say here, I think it's a good effort, don't get me wrong, and it says down here, it's suggested, and I got my glasses on here, so twice we say, in subsequent signed revisions. Why don't we endeavor to persevere and talk about redoing the whole thing? I don't see any big emergency to doing it now. And a lot of those signs are beneficial to properties that are businesses that are downtown, that are off-site, to draw people off Main Street, off Royal Gorge Boulevard downtown. I just have a little problem with that, and it just concerns me, but the overall picture that I get from reading this is that maybe we ought to discuss redoing and looking and revisiting the prohibited sign section of our whole code. Being redundant. In other words, I just didn't see a problem with it. I think these are people that probably wouldn't object to this. That's probably nobody came in here. But they were trying to do someone a good service. I did. I let the farmer's market use a sign free. I wouldn't be allowed to do that. I don't think it worked, but I just don't have a problem with it. Off-site signs. Go ahead.
Two things. I think that it would be transparent and proactive, as opposed to one publication on May 4th, that maybe a mailing to the 22 signs that we want to see moved, to invite them. Let's get their opinion or have a dialogue with them so that they're made aware of it before something like this happens. And Ortega's is open right now, so Randy and Earl are not going to be here on a public hearing on a Tuesday night.
But they have a right to a written response too.
Exactly, exactly. But you said,
Or a phone call.
you made the point that they would be here, therefore they're not interested. They're open right now, they're working. So I would suggest, before we consider this, I would like to hear input from the 22 people that have been chosen as to be the targeted off-site signs. I am also concerned that with the statement that there's currently no provision, these guys are going to be considered non-conforming, and sometime in the future they're going to be suggested that the code be revised to eliminate it completely. It's that creeping regulation thing that, let's just be upfront. Let's talk to them, find out what they need, find out if they really need it. I just did Yelp for some of the off-street signs that I know of, off-site signs, excuse me, off-premise signs. One of them that I was thinking about didn't come up. So, I mean, we've got to start the dialogue. We've got to let them be part of the solution, not just.
Yeah, I was also going to say, with a lot of mobile stuff, the smaller business owners aren't necessarily going to be paying Google, Yahoo, MSN to have their businesses right there at the top of the line when you search Canyon City for restaurants or off-site businesses. It's not going to come up like that. These signs are almost the only way that people get tourists off of Royal Gorge Boulevard onto Main Street or onto East Main or just off of the highway period to get business. Even these mobiles, a lot of them are, even if they do have websites, they're not mobile friendly. they gotta pick and choose where their money goes, and a sign lasts longer than paying yearly, monthly on a host and a website and someone else for upkeep if they don't know how to upkeep it.
And a good point to Commissioner Grantham is it's a two-way income. It's not only helping the business of the sign that's being advertised, but it's also revenue for the property owner where the sign is located. So you've just hit twice.
I have a problem in here where it says visual clutter. I don't really see it as clutter. I mean, businesses have their own signs up. I don't see how this would be any different than me having my sign up on my business and then letting somebody put one right in front, you know? Or how the city of Canyon City has a banner going across the highway. I mean, I think that would just be, if you call that visual clutter, then I think the city is added to the problem. I mean, you need to kind of practice what you preach, so.
You think this is a little ahead of the game, that there is a company out there reviewing this, and maybe there's a better time in the future, at least get us through summer. I just didn't find it that objectionable if someone, as myself, said, I'd like to please visit the Royal Gorge. I don't think that'd be offensive. Or maybe the regulation wants to say total square feet of advertising is so much. That way I'd have to rethink it because I would cut down how much I could advertise on.
And I do
Or
like,
what about the sign at the Chamber of Commerce that rolls through and advertises all our members that they're not on site either? It just opened up this Pandora's box of concerns that I understand the need to declutter. I agree in some fashion, but are we piecemealing again when maybe we should be seeing what that study is going to do and what recommendations they have? And then the smaller, it would be real arduous to get all 22 in here. But I think that,
Notification.
well, they've had the notification, but they did. They were made.
Not necessarily. There's a good chunk of people who do not subscribe to the Daily Record. It was published in the Daily Record. If you don't take the Daily Record, you don't know.
Or
I
letters.
completely disagree.
My understanding is that there was some notification on the radio as well about this meeting and
Costs 49 cents, an envelope, and one piece of stationery.
Well, but
point taken. Point taken.
I do like the comment you studied 9 municipalities, but I really liked Buena Vista's. If the adjacent property owner is okay with it, they don't mind. I think that's good to know, and I think we should keep with that too. As long as the adjacent property owner doesn't care, why should we stop them from allowing another business promoting themselves? But I understand the other 9 too, and I understand the study, and I think I agree with Preston. Maybe we should probably hold off on this and maybe review signs in general in the code and what's allowed, what's not allowed.
Okay, I'm hearing from you that you would want to not take this forward now, and your recommendation would be not to take it forward and to wait until that study is actually finished and start to look at the sign code when those final recommendations come through.
that was my thought. We've invested money into that, and I think that would be good. And also that would make a forum wide enough that maybe that public with the 22 signs would get it and they would come in. I think eventually that some of the stuff will go away. But we've invested in this study that is going to come back and we can take a look at it and then look at the prohibited sign section then.
That's your prerogative.
Can I ask a question here? Seem to have things on both sides of the issue as I read it. Our consultant, I infer, seems to be in in favor of this type of amendment, that is to get rid of signs.
Well,
On-
off-premise signs.
Yes, of course. On the other hand, existing signs are, I believe you said, you didn't use the word, but I believe they're grandfathered. So even were we to pass this, existing off-premise signs would not be affected.
Those that were established legally, yes. There are some that are out there that may not have been established legally. That's also to be determined. There are other rules and regulations that govern signage along the highways besides ours. State and also the federal regulations play into this. So those that have been legally established by our regulations are grandfathered, yes. They're non-conforming, and they would be allowed to stay based on whatever provisions the council establishes at some time in the future. A lot of jurisdictions have decided over time that some of their signage needs to be constrained to a certain extent.
That's essentially what this
So their
says.
sign code changes over time, and they ultimately disallow, for instance, off-premise signs. Most jurisdictions don't allow them, although some do. So at some point, they also established an elimination provision. That has not even been discussed
Not
at the
here.
staff level yet, as a way, how do we eliminate those, and do we? They would be allowed to stay for a certain period of time, or if they were illegally established, who knows, maybe they'd have to go away in a shorter period of time. That hasn't been
Listening to the
determined. All we're
comments-
talking about, though, right now is not allowing anything new.
Okay.
Allowing anything new. We're not talking about any of the old things yet. We're just not allowing anything new.
As they fall down, you can't put them back up.
Correct.
Listening to the comments of some of my colleagues here, it sounds like we're potentially into the area of unintended consequences. Sounds like this might require a little more study. We're going to make a big effort here on Main Street to draw some traffic off of Royal Gorge Boulevard, Highway 50, and get them over to Main Street. Signage would seem to be a component of that. So if we're headed for a point where we make our own city not in compliance with its rules, that would not be a real good idea, I think. So maybe we need a little more study. And the best of intentions, when I walk in the door this evening, I see that a sign on the door that says, "The City of Canyon City is closed on Monday." Really? I can't drive on the streets? It's closed?
That's a permissible sign.
You know, we need another sign to explain that, Doug.
Well, maybe we need
Can I-
to, you guys need to coalesce your thought here, and let's get it into a recommendation.
Could I motion that we table this for now on further study from the city?
Well, wait a minute. That's not, can we do that?
Sorry, you haven't closed. My bad.
Any more discussion? Any more questions? I'd like to close the public hearing at this time and call for a motion.
Chair,
Yes, sir.
I would like to motion that we table this report for now upon further study by the city and bring it back to us when the study is complete for further review.
Would that study be the Highway 50 corridor plan?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Was there any discussion on the motion? Please call the roll, please.
Commissioner Grantham.
Aye.
Commissioner Embry.
Aye.
Chairman Troutman.
Aye.
Commissioner Bellantoni.
Aye.
Commissioner Walsh.
Yes.
Commissioner Cromer.
Yes.
Okay, barring any more public hearings, I am going to adjourn the meeting for this evening. Thank you.